Dear students, these are dark times indeed. None of the people alive in the world today has ever experienced a global epidemic of the scale that we are experiencing right now. We don't really know how to react in these extraordinary circumstances, but as they say, desperate times call for desperate measures. So you must understand that in these times, there is a big opportunity for you. An opportunity which, if you identify and if you use it to the best of your abilities, you will gain a lot from this quarantine time. And this time just might become a sort of launching pad for your future life, a positive, a better future life. I'm Shahrukh Haider, once again with you for the fourth session of the distance learning program of the Current Affairs newspaper breakdown session. Today I'm going to talk about essentially what are the economic impacts of the global coronavirus around the world in general and on Pakistan in particular. Secondly, I'm going to give you a plan for the upcoming days, because there are chances that this crisis in Pakistan is not going to go away quickly. It's going to last for some time. So we need to utilize this time to the best of our efforts. And thirdly, I'm going to give you some motivation, as always. So first of all, as far as the economic front is concerned, when talking about the Pakistan's economy, we were already in a terrible economic crisis. We had the dual deficit at our hands. Our current account deficit was completely off the charts. Our fiscal deficit was also very high. The total accumulated debt on Pakistan was ballooning every day. There was the problem of circular debt. There was unemployment. There was inflation. High interest rates coupled with international isolation and a couple of other very damning economic situations the Pakistani citizenry were facing in the last at least 1 year. And finally, we were recovering from all of that. Our foreign exchange reserves were increasing. Our economic situation was improving. Our current account deficit changed to a current account surplus for a short time period. And the government was trying to shore up its own finances in order to lead a social welfare program in the name of ESAS. And much of those efforts were bearing fruit. But suddenly, we've been given this very big shock. So the health of the stock market, the stock exchange of Pakistan, is a good indicator of where the economy of the country is heading. So right now, for the first time in nearly 30 years, Pakistan's stock market has fallen below the 30,000 mark. It stands now less than 27,000, which is a crisis situation, to be frank. So this is amid, obviously, the global financial crisis, and this is worse than what the Pakistan Stock Exchange experienced during the 2008 financial crisis, when our net capitalization also dramatically dropped but never went below 30,000. This time it has. So in order to cope up with this situation, the State Bank of Pakistan has once again revised its interest rate. The interest rate was 14% only 2 months ago. It reduced it by 0.7% a month ago, and now 3 days ago it has once again reduced it by another 0.75%. So now the interest rate of Pakistan stands at 12.5%. And the problem with that is that by reducing the interest rate, the rupee has once again taken a hit, and there is a devaluation of the rupee. So in order to understand how these things work, we need to see how the economic machine works first of all. So let's talk about two important things. First of all, the interest rate, how does that work, and the value of currency. So talking about the interest rate. So the interest rate is basically the amount of interest that any capital acquires on a monthly basis if it is placed in a financial institution such as a bank. So for example, if you place 100 rupees in a bank, after a month you would get, if the interest rate is 14%, 14 rupees extra. So your net worth would become 114. So when the State Bank of Pakistan revises its policy rate and increases the interest rate, what happens is that people start to accumulate and save their wealth in banks so that they could earn more interest. That reduces the amount of capital and cash in the economy, and the circulation of currency also reduces. due to a reduction in the circulation of your currency, its demand increases. So it's a matter of simple demand and supply economics. So since the demand of your currency increases in the market and the supply reduces because of people keeping their money in the banks to earn interest on that money rather than engaging in economic activity in the society, your currency starts to gain value. It becomes more valuable, and its value increases as compared to the dollar. But on the other hand, if your state bank starts to reduce the interest rate, people start to take out money out of the banks, and they also start to invest in different economic activities, in business activities, in commerce. So that increases the amount of capital flow in your country and generally devalues the currency. And that is exactly what has happened in the last 3 days, when the state bank has revised its policy interest and reduced it by 0.75%. Moreover, interest rate is also related to loans, so and all kinds of financial debt instruments. So when the interest rate increases, people who were taking loans from different banks, either commercial or state banks, start to take lesser loans because the interest rate is high, and they would have to pay a greater interest capital once their maturation period of the loan starts. So that means that with high interest rate, there are lesser loans in your economy, and with lesser loans, there is once again lesser economic activity, and that can be damaging for the economic health. But that is good for the currency, that is. And generally, when a country is going through an economic crisis of the kind that Pakistan has, with a current account deficit and a fiscal deficit, it's generally a good idea to have a higher interest rate, obviously at the stake of economic activity. So on the other hand, when the interest rates are low, people start to take more loans, for example, to invest in their businesses, to expand their businesses, or to start a new venture, or to buy property, or any of the related economic activities. So this is how basically the interest rate works. So as far as the currency is concerned, and the value of currency is concerned, it depends on the sort of export and import bill that a country has. So if a country is an import-oriented economy like Pakistan is, it's actually a good idea to have a high value for your currency. Because if you have a high value for currency, then you will have to give lesser foreign exchange to pay your import bills. While on the other hand, if you are an export-based economy, it's generally good to have a low value of your currency and a devalued currency, like for example in the case of Japan, whose currency, despite being the third largest economy of the world, is nearly equivalent to Pakistani rupee. Why? Because they are an export-based economy. And in an export-based economy, it is good to have a low value for your currency, because for the foreign exchange that you get in return for the exports that you do, they give you a higher of your own currency. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. If there are any questions, write them down. We will inshallah answer them in time. So that's how these two important parameters of economic health works. So as far as the current economic crisis and the COVID-19 epidemic is concerned, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf government recently launched a 1.13 trillion rupees support package, and out of that 200 billion rupees for the next 2 to 3 months have been allocated for labor. So let's do a little math here. According to World Bank statistics, there are 80 million total number of labor in Pakistan. Out of that, nearly 40%, according to some estimates, are daily wage earners. So that means that the 200 billion rupee subsidy promised by the government under the COVID-19 relief package has been meant for 32 million daily wage earners all around Pakistan. So right now, Pakistan's basic minimum income is 15,000, which a lot of non-government organizations and international organizations such as the International Labour Organization or Akhuat Foundation in Pakistan say is way below than is required to survive in Pakistan and have a decent life. So Akhuat, for example, says that the daily wage should be raised to 20,000. So let's compare two scenarios here, in the case of 15,000 per month and in the case of 20,000 per month. So how much money would we require to cater to the needs of 32 million daily wage workers in these times of COVID-19 crisis where they can't earn anything? How much money do we need to support them so that they can survive this epidemic? So, two scenarios. First of all, according to the Pakistan's minimum wage, 15,000, and secondly, according to how much it should be, which is 20,000. So, according to the 15,000 per month mark, a daily wage earner should get at least 500 per day. So that means that for the total 32 million daily wage workers, we need 16 billion rupees daily to cater to their needs, to allow them to lead a sustainable life in these crisis times. And that means that a total of 480 billion is required in a month to cater to the economic and financial needs of these poor daily wage workers and allow them to live their lives and not starve due to lack of food. So for 80 billion, remember that figure. Secondly, in the case of 20,000 rupees per month, which is a better monthly wage and something that might allow a family to survive, we need one laborer should get 667 rupees per day. So that brings it to 21 billion rupees per day for the total 32 million daily wage workers. And that means 630 billion rupees monthly are required to cater to the needs of 32 million daily wage earners in Pakistan. So for the first scenario, the shortfall is nearly 280 billion rupees out of the 200 billion package that has been announced by the government for daily wage earners. And in the second case scenario, the shortfall is 430 billion rupees. So that means that the economic package that has been released by the government to sort of help people, daily wage earners, to shore this crisis is way too late and too little, right? So now, which means that we will suffer and daily wage workers will suffer. Their daily needs will not be met. A lot of people will face a lot of food shortages, and food inflation might just become a reality in the coming days, because I feel that this crisis is not going away, at least for the next 2 to 3 months. So get ready for that. Secondly, let's look at the global economy for now. So the European Union financial package has been, is being discussed by the European Union financial ministers and their financial commission right now. So Italy, Spain, Germany and France are having the worst of the coronavirus COVID-19 crisis, and Italy is the epicenter in the world right now, with more than 6,500 fatalities recorded until now. So recently a G20 summit was held on the coronavirus epidemic and its economic impacts around the world. So the G20 represent the 20 largest economies in the world. And an IMF and European Central Bank meeting was also held recently, and all three forums concluded that they must dole out money, they must loan money to governments and to financial institutions and to all relevant departments around the European Union and the developed world in order to help them cope up with this economic crisis, because naturally due to social distancing and having 1/3 of humanity under lockdown right now, economic activity simply cannot happen. So companies are losing billions of dollars on a daily basis. The IMF has predicted that the world has already lost $1.3 trillion damage to its net valuation, and going forward in the next 2 months we are going to lose another $3 trillion. So another interesting thing that is happening around the world right now, and I am especially proud to recognize the fact that our Prime Minister and our Foreign Minister has been at the forefront of this war, is the growing international movement happening especially in the developing world to put pressure on the developed countries and international financial institutions to waive off the loans and debts that developing countries owe to international financial institutions and the developed countries, firstly. Secondly, there is also a growing international movement heralded by Pakistani Prime Minister himself to lift the economic sanctions on Iran by the US and by the international community to help it fight the coronavirus outbreak, which is especially bad in Iranian case as well. And we have seen videos where Iranian doctors have pleaded to the international community to help them because there is a dire shortage of medical supplies in Iran right now. So maybe in this entire scenario, the United Nations can play a positive role, and United Nations organizations can mobilize countries around the world, especially the developed countries, to help the developing countries by A, waiving off any loans that they have on them, and B, by lifting any sort of economic sanctions that there might be present, and C, by providing them with essential medical supplies at subsidized rates globally. Because this is a fight that humanity has to fight together. The virus does not discriminate between rich or poor country or rich or poor person, as Prince Charles will definitely tell you. So when it comes to lobbying in the United Nations, we have very good examples of that in the recent past as well. So for example, if we take the case of the climate change crisis, so one of the worst affected group of countries around the world when it comes to the climate change are basically small island nation states. So what they did is that they formed a lobby group within the United Nations, and at each climate change conference or summit held by the United Nations, they used to band together the small island nation states such as Maldives or Sicilies and many others to sort of put pressure on the developed world, which is primarily responsible for the global climate change crisis, to help financially and with all other means possible the small island nation states to cope with the climate change crisis. So why are the small island nation states having the worst of the climate change crisis? Because globally, as the temperatures rise, the North Pole and the South Pole are rapidly losing ice. They are adding water and volume to the world's seas, which is why the global sea level has already risen by 21 centimeters, and it is steadily rising at a very fast rate. And that means that the small island nation states might just not exist in the next 30 or 40 years. They would be completely submerged under a risen sea. So similarly, maybe the developing world can form a lobby in this COVID-19 pandemic and put pressure on the developed world and the international financial institutions to help them financially and in whatever means possible, especially when it comes to medical equipment, because there is a dire shortage of medical supplies all around the world. So the United Nations has recently announced a $2 trillion package to sort of storm out any economic impacts that the pandemic will have on American economy. Now that is a good package. That is the kind of packages that the world and developing countries need at this point. But naturally, they simply do not have the resources for that right now. So when it comes to debts and loans and how the economy of countries and the world works, I'm going to share a very important video with you in your WhatsApp groups by the name of How the Economic Machine Works. I hope it helps you understand how the economy works. And if you have any questions, you can write them down, or you can basically reach out to me on WhatsApp, and I will inshallah answer all your questions. So now, on towards your daily routine. So I understand that many of you are scared, and these are dark times indeed, and you are locked in your homes and in perpetual quarantine, and you don't really know what to do with your time. So I'm going to give you a CSS quarantine plan to help you utilize this time to the best of your ability to really get into the CSS preparation, right? So here's what I want you guys to do. First of all, from Monday to Friday, you are going to read the Daily Dawn front to back, and if you are afraid of the newspaper carrying the COVID-19 virus to your homes, don't order it. Instead, you can read it online, but you must read it. And of any relevant information or topic that you might find in the newspaper, for example, the Afghan crisis, I recommend that on a daily basis, you try to read the Afghan crisis, for example, if that comes in the daily news, in multiple dimensions in detail. Cover it up so that at least one of your current affairs topic is done in 1 week's time. So daily newspaper and one current affairs topic in depth from multiple angles. So I would suggest that you read books such as Trek to Pakistan. It's a good book to understand Pakistan history, and Pakistan's foreign policy from 1947 to 2019 by Abdul Sattar. These books will help you understand the dynamics of Pakistan's internal and foreign policy, and really broaden your understanding of Pakistan, which is really what you need in the CSS exam. Secondly, I also want you to read the New York Times daily magazine and the daily newspaper as well. It has very good analysis, and some of the articles are relevant to you. Now, in order to understand which things are relevant to you and which are not, you must read the syllabus of each of your subjects thoroughly, and you must consult at least last 5 years past papers, so you get a general understanding of what the scope of a subject is by looking and overviewing the syllabus, and B, what is expected of you in that paper, and that the past papers of the past 5 years will help you understand that. Secondly, on Saturday, what I want you to do is complete one Pakistan affairs topic from the syllabus outline in multiple ways. It could be from your market available CSS oriented Pakistan affairs book. It could be from books such as I've just mentioned, Trek to Pakistan, or Pakistan's foreign policy. And if you don't find relevant material to any topic from the syllabus outline of Pakistan affairs, so you should just consult me on WhatsApp, and I will send you inshallah the relevant material. And secondly, what else I want you to do on Saturday is to basically complete one topic of general science and ability. It could be a practice of 5 to 6 questions of the maths section, or one topic from the general science section. It could be biology or computer science or anything. And on Sunday, thirdly, what I want you to do is that basically at least write one essay outline and an introductory paragraph and a concluding paragraph. And you keep doing that in the following weeks, and you collect them, and once inshallah this storm passes and our academy is open and we become available, you come and get it checked from us. We will inshallah give you a detailed feedback and really help you improve your essay writing skills. And secondly, on Sunday, you should also write one précis and one translation, or at least one précis or one translation. And once you've done a couple of those, you can shift to other forms of the précis and composition paper, for example the comprehension or other small 5 marks parts in that paper. So from Monday to Friday, what you're doing is, and this is the fourth part of your preparation plan, is that you're right now reading the newspaper and covering at least one current affairs topic, right? So besides that, from Monday to Friday, what you should do is take up at least 1 or 2 of your optional subjects. Carry them along if you're taking 2 optional subjects, and read them in detail from good international authors. Whichever subject you want good recommendations of books for, you ask me on WhatsApp, and inshallah I will get back to you. We do have a treasure trove of all relevant material that you need. So that's 4 important preparation plans. Lastly, I want you to study for at least 7 to 9 hours on a daily basis, and divide your time according to the way that you studied in your bachelor's or your previous education. You don't really need to change your study patterns, you just need to sharpen them and polish them. For example, if your one window of focus is only 30 minutes, that's good. Take a break for 30 minutes after that, and then go back to studying for the next 30 minutes. So that is your plan, the CSS quarantine plan, as I would like to call it. And I would like you to really follow this, because this will help you cover all of your subjects, your compulsories and your optionals. And you should also treat your Islamiyat as an optional subject, which means that you're going to study it in the Monday to Friday slot. So right, that's it for the CSS oriented guidance for now. On the other hand, I want you guys to take this time of crisis as an opportunity, because behind every crisis there is an opportunity, and take this time as the time to turn your life around. Do not give in to the fear of the corona crisis. Do not panic. Turn your life around. Beat the fear. For example, exercise daily, improve your physical health being, meditate on a daily basis. I'm sure that many of you have had things that you have wanted to do for a long time now, but you simply couldn't do them because of lack of time or lack of energy or lack of drive. well, now is the time to do those things while remaining at your home, which could be reading a book or learning how to cook or learning a new musical instrument or learning any sport, for example. Right? So utilize this time, be positive about it, and think of this time as a reset of your life to understand yourself, to understand your priorities in life, and to understand your purpose in life. Think. And I would suggest that you establish a daily 5 times prayer and spend quality time with your family that all of you deserve. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says famously in Surah Al-Baqarah, that Allah does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. With that, I leave you. Thank you very much.